The Pope and Young Club wants to welcome you as we rally together to ensure our bow hunting opportunities for today and tomorrow. You've come to the podcast that believes in preserving, protecting, and promoting the passion for bow hunting. Join us as we strive to be the voice of today's bow hunter. This is the Pope and Young Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pope and Young Podcast. You've got Jason Roundsville and Dylan Ray headed at you live today. We actually decided to do this episode. We just had a great event this past weekend in Ogden, Utah. And so we just wanted to talk about that, let folks know how things went, and for a lot of you, what you missed. So that's kind of going to be our program today. I'm going to start it off with that. There's a lot of great highlights.
You know, it's good when you have an event, and I told you this morning, I'm like, dude, we can talk about this event without a guest. Like, that's how many cool things we have to drop, I think so. And I'm going to lead it off. One of the most exciting is that new typical velvet mule deer world's record. Yeah.
That is a stud. And huge shout out to the records committee, Roy Grace, records chair, Tim Rozuski, the director of records. This is one of those things where, people are always asking, well, Pope and Young, they're just old and set in their ways. And you know what? Here's a prime example of where that's not the case. This buck was.
I thought you were going to say, you know what, we are, but in a few ways we're not.
Hey, no, this is one of those things where, this buck is what, 10 years old. It was shot 10 years ago.
2012. Yeah.
And it was measured at that time, and it came in, obviously there was a lot of scuttlebutt at that time, and we did not, we accepted velvet entries, but we did not recognize world's records in the velvet category.
Yep.
And so, in 21, we went in, the records committee made a recommendation to the board. The board accepted that recommendation, and we now recognize world records in the velvet categories. And I think it's a great change. I'm not a member of the records committee, but I think they got this one right. They nailed it. I think this is a buck that truly, I was standing next to it. It's magnificent, and it definitely deserves any title it can get. So I'm really proud of that committee and our entire records department. Thanks to the hunter for bringing it in. And I know a lot of folks are scared to death to have things go to panel, especially in the velvet category, because the shrinkage is so big. And what is really nice, I've talked to hunters who have had their stuff dropped out of the book because it was a top 10 animal and was invited to panel, and they're just like, you know what, I don't need it to go to panel. So it dropped completely out of the book just because they didn't want the score to go down at panel. And it was nice on this one. It was, they brought it in, panel measured it, and upheld the original score from 10 years ago.
Exact same, 10 years ago.
Exact same, yeah. So
that's just a testament to our measures.
It was nice to see. It really was. So, congratulations. What a tremendous buck. Super happy to have that announcement, and it was neat just to see it.
One thing I think is cool, Jay, we get to see a lot of world records, and we get to see them, picture wise, maybe before everybody else does, but we were there, dude. Like, we got to look at it and touch it. That thing was absolutely phenomenal.
Yes.
And see, I'm of the opinion, of course, I'm a whitetail guy, so we don't get velvets as much as, some mule deer, blacktail, but I'm of the opinion that a mule deer is worth more than a hardhorn because it's that rare find.
It is a
And
little
so,
more rare. Yeah.
yeah. So for the longest time, it was like you weren't punished for having a velvet, but
Absolutely. You were punished for having a velvet.
it wasn't. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and so it's incredible to see. We, as a marketing team, we hear all the time, wait a minute, you guys take velvets now?
Yeah.
Yes, we do take velvets now. And so, some guys were terrified of stripping velvet or I mean,
Yeah.
and you don't have to do that. They stand in a class of their own, and world records are now accepted and recognized and special, man.
Yeah. It really is. It was neat to be a part of. So,
Yeah.
and especially where everything turned out positive for it, because once again, going into special panels, you just never know. It could go either way. So,
Yeah.
um, it was exciting that, we had the special panel, we had a measure workshops. We actually have 24, I think, new measures coming on. So that's exciting. We're going to have some coverage in some areas that I think we were a little bit shy on before. So, the measure
Super
workshop.
exciting for me to see the excitement around being a measurer. We have
Yes.
people coming from Alaska. I mean,
Oh, Delaware.
I don't even remember all the states they named.
Yeah.
Delaware, that was one. Yeah. I mean, there was a big excitement in that room about becoming a measurer, and that was exciting for
Yes.
me.
Yeah, that was neat to see. And, folks willing to make that travel, clear across the country to get in to become an official measure. And it's neat when you sit and talk to those guys. A lot of them have been measuring, just doing it unofficially, so to speak. And now
Yeah.
that they've taken the class, they're like, wow,
Yeah.
there's some scores out there that aren't right.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's why you want to, when I see a score, the first thing I think is, has it been officially measured?
Yeah.
And when I say officially measured, I don't mean by somebody in their garage on their tailgate, or, you know, I don't know, six pack Charlie, who he'll measure anything you want for a six pack of beer. You just tell him what
Yeah.
score you want, and I hear a lot of it. Well, my guy, he's been doing this for 20 years and he said this. And it's like, we work with guides and outfitters constantly, and they're great people, but they have a vested interest to make you happy with that animal. If they tell you, oh, it's a 200 when it's a 183, they just want you happy. And so it's when you get the official score and it goes through the review process at Chatfield and is entered, I mean, that's the real deal. There's no fudging it after that. There's no, oh, it's about, X, Y, or Z score. No, it's exactly
Yeah.
X, Y, Z, and 2/8.
I did. So one guy was standing over there talking to me, and he was watching from up top in the mezzanine area,
Yeah.
watching these measures. And he says he was looking at two gentlemen. He said, "Dude, there's just no way. There had to be some precursor to this course. Like, there's no way they're measuring this like this the second day of this course." And I look
Mhm.
out, and he was looking at he was looking at Larry Strife and
Oh, geez.
and
And Stan Zerbal. Oh, gee. Yeah.
And I said,
Those,
those aren't they're not here for the course.
no, those guys have 80 years of
Yeah.
experience between a measure, and it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, those are like panel measures there. Those aren't newbies by any
No,
means.
those aren't guys new to the class. Those are guys who have been to, I think Larry's been to every single panel.
Yeah.
And Stan's been, so yeah,
But for
those are
guys who
the,
don't understand, like what this guy, the gentleman that was sitting there looking on, was watching two gentlemen who took their job incredibly serious. They have
yes.
tools, they have books, I mean, they put on, some of them wear extra like special glasses for measuring. I mean, they pull out a toolbox to measure these animals.
Yeah.
And like, I never could wrap my mind around like what they go through as measures until I went to that panel. And then
Yeah.
that guy sitting there watching Larry and Stan was like, "Holy crap, dude. Like there's no way they're new." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's because they're not."
Yeah, they're not. Yeah. That's no, it's neat that you could identify that though. And those guys do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's you know, the accuracy that they pride themselves on is, I mean, it's intense. It really is. They want to get it
Yeah.
exactly right. And there's no rounding up over here and we could find an eighth. No, there's no finding an eighth. It's either there or it's not. And if it's not, they're not going to measure it again to try to it's
Right.
yeah, it's pretty neat process. I
Well,
don't
and I feel like we beat this drum to death, but that butcher buck is a perfect testament, dude.
uh
I mean, perfect testament. Two
yeah,
teams, 8 hours apiece, 16 hours going into a deer that when you some odd points and they come up like 2.5 inches off. Like that's just all three teams 2.5. That's insane.
yeah. It's just I can't even imagine that. I wouldn't know where to start on something like that. And here they are
No, I
like
couldn't even
just
count the
nailing it.
points.
No, yeah, it's
I wouldn't even be
that
able to count the points, much less measure each point. And I
yeah.
mean, it was insane.
They have a system and
One
it
thing that
clearly
I was
works.
excited about, one thing that I was excited about this weekend, which, I know we kind of want to dive in and talk about next year because, but that was one thing that was exciting. By the end of the weekend, there was a whole lot of already hype about next year.
Yeah.
Um, the field day was exciting. I think we had 8 vendors. And when you got companies like Hoyt, Baku, and Kings showing up as vendors,
Yeah.
it's undoubtedly going to be big. And I was excited about our field day. I do think that next year, given some move around with some targets and making some courses, and I think that our field day next year will be phenomenal. But still, again, 8 vendors, 8 great vendors. Shout out to all those who came.
Yeah.
You helped make it a great day. And so I was excited to see that, excited to see some families. I did, Jason, I got to send you some footage. I went out to film some, and there was a little boy shooting on the range. And I said, do you mind? I asked the mom, I said, do you mind if I film your son? She said, no, absolutely not. And so he got over there and he said, this is my arrow. And then he launched it and missed the target completely. But he looked over at me and said, that was close. And then ran off and got another arrow and came back and did it again.
Nice.
Said the same thing, word for word. This is my arrow. Then he did it
Yeah.
again. That
They
was
do
close.
it.
And then he
That
ran
was
back
close.
off.
Awesome.
It was
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
No, it was a fun day though. Super fun.
It was something a little bit different. And, for us,
Yeah.
we wanted people, obviously, we wanted people to come to the dinner, but we wanted the archery community as a whole to have something they could rally around. And that's why we did the field day. No charge, show up, ride a Baku bike, shoot a Hoyt bow. Just a real neat opportunity to talk, up close with vendors. And I know in talking to it, um, you always want more. And I would have loved to have had more people there for the field day. But then you talk to the folks that are there local, and huge shout out to Todd and Mike and their team from the
Yeah.
Weber County Archery Center. Man, Mike, everything we asked for, he was right there with. Same thing with Todd. We're like, hey, we sure could use 2 microphones, and they start jumping in and brainstorming ways to make that happen. He called a guy in to literally wire up another mic for us for that night. So, Weber County couldn't have been better to work with. Just I can't think of a way. And at the end of this, he comes up to me and he says, he says, we have some ideas. He says, you just never know the first time you work with somebody. He said, this was a professional event. We're all in. He says, next year, let me put 100 targets up on that mountain. He says, let me run 3 or 4 3D courses and let's pack this place. He said, what I want to see is a waiting line at the gate when we open it Saturday morning. Yeah. So I'm encouraged by that. You talk to some of our other partners, once again, King's Camo came on with some nice donations. That was great. Good Utah company and heard a lot of good things. And then how about Baku literally stepping it up the day of the event to allow us to sell an e-motorcycle that you cannot buy. This is one of those things. If you want one, you should have bought it Saturday, because you can't call them up and say, hey, I want one. You can't do it. They're not set up to sell them yet. You can't buy it, but they let us sell one. And granted, they, the buyer has to sign a waiver literally to join their research and development team just to ride this thing. And I understand the waiver because I wrote it, and wow, this thing, I mean, you could go, it'll do 70 miles an hour. And talking to David back, he says, man, you can do a wheelie pretty much anywhere from 0 to 70.
Yeah.
It was impressive.
I told my wife, like, when I got home, I was fired up about that thing.
Holy smokes.
A lot of people just think, oh yeah, gimmicky, salesy, whatever you're trying to do. And I told my wife straight up, I'm like, I grew up riding a lot of motorcycles, a lot of dirt bikes. And that thing right there is no stinking joke. No. I mean, I was running 45 in second gear.
I was shocked because I've got their top of the line bike. I've got one of the Storm bikes, and I'm happy with my Storm. This is not a different e-bike. This is a dirt bike.
Yes.
An electric dirt bike. And it's just, wow. They call it the Puma. I don't know if that name's going to stick or not, but that's the one that they started with. And it's, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe the torque and the power that thing had. It was borderline scary.
Speaking of bikes, I got to drive to Iowa this week to get my very first bike. I'm excited.
Which would you get?
The Mule.
Okay. That's kind of
being from Kansas.
That's
no need for the. Yeah. I mean, they didn't want a Flatlander because I do head out west a little bit, but being here in Kansas, no need for a Storm, I didn't think. So that, and I wanted to save a little bit so I could get a scooter as well down the road. So I'm incredibly excited, man.
Yeah. I haven't had a dirt bike on my want list. I don't know, maybe since I was like 12. And now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that was cool. I may put that on my list, because I just had never really had a need for one. They're noisy, and I just wasn't on my list.
Nobody other than Jack Culpepper got the very first one.
No, Jack wound up buying that thing. So kudos to him. He's done a lot of dirt bike ride. He's like, man, I used to ride a lot of dirt bikes. He says, that thing's cool. And he's right. It is.
I wonder if he rode it before.
I don't think he did.
Do you know if he got a chance to ride it before?
No, because he was in the class. He was in the measuring class. So anyway, neat opportunity.
Yes. Jay, we got to make it. We do got to make another announcement too. Speaking of people getting stuff, we drew our adventure raffle winners.
Yes, we did. Two winners.
Tim P from South Dakota is going on an 8-day moose hunt with Rogue Outfitters. And Steve A from Washington got the Baku Storm bike package. Yeah. I don't know where else you can spend $20 and get a moose hunt and or a $8,000 bike, but we did it.
Yeah, no, it was good. I got to call and notify both of those guys. And, one of these days people will figure out to quit sending me to voicemail, I swear. But I was calling because we had some stuff to do before I headed out. And then I literally got to the airport, picked up the phone and called, and Steve called me back. I was literally sitting on my plane. They're getting ready to close the door. And so normally I'm pretty excited, but I had to keep it a little subdued so I didn't get thrown off the aircraft. But no, they were happy. And I mean, how could you not be happy? Hey, here's my $20. Can I have a $10,000 moose hunt or an $8,000 bike, please?
Well, one guy I was talking to before the drawing took place, he was like, oh man, that's a good prize. And he said, that's a good prize for a $20 raffle. I said, no. Those are two good prizes for $20 raffles. And he's like, what? Yeah. He's like, there's no way like you guys are doing that. And I'm like, yeah, we are. Yeah. Because we got great partners.
We do. So no, Tyler, thanks for hooking us up with the moose hunt. And Dave and Brian and Brian and the whole Baku crew, um, great to work with. We were super, super jazzed to be able to do that with them.
Can I
And
say this and not sound too sales pitchy, Jason? I don't want this to be
you
an
can
ad.
try. You can
I
try.
I really don't want this to be an ad, but I can't. The guys at Baku are the greatest guys I've ever dealt with. And I work with a lot of people inside Pope and Young and outside Pope and Young. And the guys at Baku, if you're in the market for an e-bike, check them out because they are the greatest guys I've ever dealt with in my entire life.
Yeah,
Phenomenal.
you know what? My bike got some hard use last year. It spent literally thousands of miles on a rack, going to Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, all over the place. And then it got a lot of use where, frankly, prior to owning a Baku bike, I didn't think you should ever have a bike there.
Yeah.
And, I, I'll just throw it out there. I had one issue with my bike that was 100% my fault. When I bought mine, all the good racks were sold out. I couldn't buy a good rack. So I bought the best rack that I could for the back of my truck. And one of the parts on the rack wore off. And I lost my bike going over a water bar in Eastern Oregon. And I was able to ride it for the balance of that season. But then over on the off season, I went in to have it fixed, and I took it to a bike shop just to have it tuned up and see if they could get the adjustments back. And actually, when it came off the truck, um, it broke a piece. And so I called them up, and man, they took care of it right away. They said, "You want it to ship to you? Do you want it to the bike place?" And I was really impressed that my mistake, and they still backed it. They're just like, "Hey,
Yeah.
no problem. Here you go. Well, let me ship that piece out to you." And I'm like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." So,
Yeah. There's few companies like that. And you're like, how do you stay in business?
yeah.
But that's how
So,
you stay in business.
yeah, it's no, they're great to work with. Appreciate all of them. And and they had a whole table there at the event, even supporting it. I think they bought a couple of the bows, if I'm not the museum bows, and I think a hunting
Yeah,
trip.
stinking butthead, dude. We got into a little bidding war, me and Dave there, and
You
he
aren't gonna
looked.
win though.
Listen, what was worse is he looked back at me, made eye contact, and was just like, "Dude, I got you, dude." And I'm like, "Come on, man!" Like, and
Hey,
he got me. Like, I couldn't
yeah.
hang with him, and
No,
I
you're
wanted that
not.
bow though.
Yeah. Well, next time around. But yeah, you're not gonna hang with those guys at an
Yeah,
auction. Sorry.
yeah. He looked back to see who was bidding, saw me, made eye contact, and it was just like, "Dude, come on,
Yeah.
young buck," and he got the bow. I'll say that.
Yeah. So no, that was fun, and just so many neat parts of that. Um, you know, we'd never done a 1-day event like that before. And for those of you who don't know, the planning or the brainstorm for that literally went back 3 years. And Dave and I, one of the Baku owners, and I, we were shooting the Pope and Young world record course at the Mountain Archery Festival. And he was so excited about this Weber County Archery Park. They were coming in as the title sponsor of this thing. And he was so excited. I don't even think the deal was done yet. And he started telling me about it. And I'm like, man, that sounds like a great place to have an event, especially an archery event, because there's indoor range, outdoor range, all this wonderful property. And so it took 3 years to come to fruition, but here it was. And it felt pretty good to be standing up on that stage, talking into a microphone about something that, we'd literally been working on for 3 years with those guys.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and now we just got to make our dream of the Baku Pope and Young Hunt Wars a reality.
oh yeah. You know what? That's going to be some payback for him taking that bow from me. We'll remember that when we get in a tree stand somewhere, and you can just be think when that buck comes in and you're like, I got this. You'll be like, Dave, this one's for you, as you put it right behind his shoulder.
That, or he's gonna make eye contact with me again,
And
intimidate
he's
me
gonna
again,
say,
and I'm gonna be like, okay. No, those guys
so,
really are phenomenal, though, and I just can't stress that enough. You deal with a lot of people, and some things are business relationships, and some things are cut and dry. But with those guys, it's whatever you need, we're here, and
yeah,
and
it's
we
partnership.
we yeah, we value that relationship immensely.
Yeah. So it's that was great. And them letting us do the unveil on the Puma, that was kind of a last minute thing. I was like, guys, I've got to they had one out there, and I was like, guys, we've got to have one on our auction.
For
And once
everybody
again,
watching this on Facebook or on YouTube, this is going to be the picture that is used for the release of the bike as well.
No way. You kept that picture. All right.
Oh, they've already had me send it to them.
Oh, hallelujah.
When after like that whole deal ended, Terry came to me and she's like, "No, for real, send that to me now." And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am."
It was just too cool not to take a picture like that.
I'm like, "I will not tell you no. Here it is."
Yeah. Yeah. So it's that thing, it was cool. And I asked, I said, guys, we've got to have one of these for the auction tonight. And they're like, nope. And I'm like, oh, no. I don't think you understand. We've got to have one.
I want this one.
Yeah. And they're like, we're not even set up to sell these yet. We have to go through this whole process to create VIN numbers. And I'm like, okay, but we want one. And so next thing you know, like, we had to drop the idea. We got a few no's, and then they're like, well, we don't even have photos. And I'm like, great, because I have a camera right on my phone. We'll get some pictures. And I think I'm sure there was a lot of eye rolling, but it was so neat because then they're like, you know what? Yeah,
why not?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And
there was a lot of freaking out going on because, Dave left, and then we were left with, oh crud, Amberly and
Levi.
I don't remember. Levi.
Yeah.
And so then it became this deal of like, well, I can't get a hold of Marsing, or I can't get a hold of Dave. I don't know what to do. And I would just say, oh, I'll just do it. And they're like, no. And I'm like, yeah. I told her at one point, I said, well, hey, I'm just going to post this picture and, whatever. And she said, you can't do that. And so then I got on the fact, like I was on the phone, and I said, hey, Brian, Amberly here, she told me that we were good to post that. And she started freaking out. She said, no, I didn't. No, I did not. It was fun, though.
Yeah, it was nice to mess with them a little bit, but it turned out cool. And I've had a couple of people come up to me since that and say, I had no idea you were going to have that on there. And I'm like, yeah, neither did we. And they're like, I just didn't know. Like, I had two people that dropped off after the hunt. They were on there for a certain hunt, and after they got their hunt, they just kind of dropped off the live feed, and they didn't stick around. And both of them were like, I can't believe that bike joining the R&D team and all that went for that. And so it was pretty neat. It's neat to be able to unveil it live on the auction feed. It would have been pretty cool. Like, if we'd had some pictures, I think that thing would have gone crazy. But we just couldn't. We promised, hey, we won't post a picture until it's live on the auction. We literally dropped that, unveiled it right there. So neat opportunity.
Very cool. You want to dive into? Well, actually, I want to talk about a really cool thing that happened. And then we'll jump back to our field judging championship.
Was this about the shoes?
What shoes?
The shoes. When we first got there, and he's like, hey, man, you guys help me out with the shoes.
What are we talking about?
When we first got to so we go rolling into the hotel, and one of the guys from the measure course came up, and I won't throw him under the bus with names.
Oh, now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's like, hey, guys, I listened to the podcast. He's like, you totally saved me. And we're like, yeah. And so anyway,
he's saved you mentally, physically. Yeah. What do you mean?
And so
saved your marriage. I don't know what we're doing here.
Nothing nearly that cool, but he literally had left the house. So he had left to go to the measuring workshop in Ogden And apparently he had just gotten on the road, put the podcast on. And I don't know how we got onto it, but we were talking about Crocs and boots and shoes. And he says, man, he says, right then and there, I realized I didn't pack any shoes for this whole trip. So I turned around and went and got shoes. So
Yeah.
I like it.
That was a good compliment.
Yeah. Pope and Young podcast, changing lives one at a time.
One shoe at a time.
One shoe at a time. So that was kind of neat. It's always neat to hear from those folks.
That's not where I was going, but I'm glad you brought it back. So that had slipped my mind. But you know, Jason, this idea of partnering with Wishes for Warriors came about, not too long ago. And I really didn't know how cool it was going to be until I got to watch it.
Yes.
I didn't really know. I don't think my mind really truly wrapped around how cool it was going to be. But what we did
hope
was,
it's going to be that cool. You really hope it's going to be as cool as what it turned out to be, but it even exceeded my expectations.
Oh, 100% it did, tenfold. But we, with the help of Bear Archery and Trophy Ridge, we got these bows ready, and they brought in these veterans who had never been introduced to archery. And with the help of Dallas and Scott, and I'm not going to start naming teachers, Ken, a few other instructors, they really got to spend one-on-one time with these veterans, teach them how to set up your bow, how to cut your arrows, how to shoot the bow, how to sight it in. And then they went and shot one of the courses there. And that in and of itself was really cool. I got to go out and film some of that, and just seeing how the veterans were just lighting up every time they shot the bow, and high-fiving and cheering on each other, and of course heckling their veterans. But it was really cool to watch that. And I was like, if we stopped here, that's enough. That was cool. But then we bring them into dinner, and they had no idea that this was going to happen. And Bam comes up on stage and presents these guys their bows to keep. And so now these veterans in one day went from having no exposure to archery to learning from literally some of the greatest bow hunters we have, learning from those bow hunters on how to shoot, how to shot placement on a deer, so on and so forth. Then they're presented with brand new bows that they get to take home. And these veterans were literally like, dude, I'll be home tomorrow at 3. I'll be shooting at 3:15, like they were just ecstatic about getting into the sport of archery. And it was really cool that we got to play a part of that. And I can't wait to edit some of the video and get it out there, because it was special.
Yeah. And not only just want a bow. It's not like, oh, I want a bow on a raffle. We presented them with the bows that had been set up for them.
By them.
It was their draw length. It was their draw weight. It was their arrow length. Everything was already set up for them. So it's literally walk out the door and shoot that thing ready. So that was neat to see. It's one of those moments on stage that are really cool. And then, when they presented the moose hunt, that was kind of a neat experience. So, for somebody to be able to recognize, a lifelong dream like that is pretty neat.
Yeah, it was a very special thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it was going to be that special. Not that, not saying anything bad towards what happened, but I didn't think that much of it. And then we got there, and I'm like, I'm really glad we did this, and I hope we can do it every year.
Yeah. No, it was good. And that's nice, because, we're allowed to do what we do because of what those guys do, all over the world, in places you don't ever want to be. They're jumping in and they're doing it. So we appreciate it. It's nice to give back to the veterans on something like that.
We as Pope and Young, we're the voice of bow hunters, but we wouldn't have a voice if it wasn't for what they did.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I think it was a special thing that we got to be a part of, and I'm grateful we got to.
Yeah. And how about the auction, man? What'd you think of that?
I didn't get anything I bid on. So
is Is that a ploy? Is that a ploy asking for more money? Is that the
That
long way around the?
No, this is a jab at Dave.
Okay, all right.
No, it was a good auction, man. Exciting to see John Bear crush it as always.
Oh yeah.
I
How
posted a
about
little.
his assistant though?
He was good looking, but he just didn't have the voice that John has.
No, he doesn't have the voice, and it's and the last time I saw John, was at Western, and he had Jana up there helping him doing the announcement. I'm like, man, that's not the package you want to follow. That was a good combo. And
I posted a video on Pope and Young's page of John auctioning, and I just said John Bear doing John Bear things because he just does it like no one else can.
No, it's good. And you know what? Huge shout out to all of our donors. We can't do what we do on preserving, protecting, and promoting bow hunting if we don't have partners for the events, for the auctions, the corporate partners that allow us to do these things, the outfitter partners that allow us to do these things. And, it's a little bit humbling for me when you keep going back to these folks and they keep coming up big. We go to, Rainy Pass. I call Steve Perrins. I'm like, hey, Steve, we've got this thing coming up. I know you just did something for us at convention. I know you're already talking about next convention. We've got this unique opportunity where we're going to do an online auction. Could we put something together? And he's like, yep.
And then, not only, it's how about a brown bear, black bear combo?
Two bears.
Like, you said combo, not combo and or.
Right. Yeah. So that one, I mean, and it's a world-class, Rainy Pass Lodge. It's just world-class. And so
I was blown away when I made that announcement on social media. I was blown away, and people who have nothing to do with Pope and Young. I got so many messages and comments about how incredible Steve Perrins is, how incredible the lodge is, how incredible the experience is, how incredible this or that. And the first one or two, I was like, oh, they might have won one in the past. But then they kept rolling in, and I'm talking 12 to 15 comments or messages just about how special the Rainy Pass Lodge is. And I'm like, man, we work with the best of the best.
Yeah. And even, like we had a bunch of those folks, Adrenaline Outfitters and Monster Whitetails. And, how about Machweir?
Yeah.
I mean, it was the same thing there. We call them and say, hey, here's an opportunity we have. Could you put a package together for us? Maybe how about like a sable and a wildebeest? And they're like, okay, you know what? Or how about, a sable and a wildebeest and a blessed buck and a crocodile? It's like, we asked for this, and then they go the neck like 2 levels up. So, partners like that are just really exciting. And, Bear Track over in Wyoming, TJ came through with another antelope hunt for us.
If they can get you an antelope, they're doing something right.
Bam.
I'm just saying, dude.
Yeah. You taking shots at me now? First, you're asking for more money. Now you're taking shots at me.
Hey, I'm still just bitter. I'm taking my anger on Dave out on you, I guess.
I'll tell you what, there's just a different league of auction participants between the two of y'all. just saying.
When you show up to the auction rocking a bright pink and blue shirt with palm trees on it, you're there to run the place. You know what I mean?
You're there. Yeah.
Well, you are the king of that place.
Yeah. When you have your banner is like 18 by 24 on the back wall, when you're going home with something.
When you're in the Baku Center and you are the owner of Baku, you can do whatever you want, I guess.
Yeah. No, it was neat. So we had a lot of great partners, some wonderful donations for that, and just appreciate everybody who donated to the event, everybody who got online and bid, everybody who bought something, and everybody who was the number 2 bidder. Thank you for participating and making it successful.
Shameless plug. Our auction in April at our convention is already shaping up to be massive.
Oh yes, I think
I
massive
think
would
we
be.
already have 14 hunts and we're still 8 months out, 9 months out.
Yeah, and we've got
No, 11 months out.
we're yeah, that's going to be a lineup that you will not want to miss. And that
Massive.
whole thing, I mean, you don't want to miss the convention. You certainly don't want to miss the auctions, because we've got the best of the best, and we don't just take everybody. We won't like somebody that says, oh, here's
No.
this. If it's not a good fit for us, we politely decline. We're just like, well, here's, so
You know what? I mean, perfect. I'm not going to name any names, obviously, but just right before we left, we had a guy say, hey, yeah, let's do a hunt for this. And, after talking to him, me and you decided, hey, this probably isn't the best fit for our club.
yeah.
And that, what I think is what holds that auction to such high standards. And if you were impressed with this auction in Ogden, now imagine that times 2.5 for convention. And that's about what you have.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit bigger. I think Saturday during the day, the big auction is going to be extraordinary, and I think we're going to have. I know last year in Reno, that that lineup was so big and so powerful. We had things moved to Friday. Like we had a grizzly bear hunt. We had a moose hunt.
Didn't
We
we
had
didn't we
like
move like a lion hunt to Friday or something?
I think we did. Yeah, we had a lioness hunt once again from Mochware. So all of
Insane.
a sudden,
Yeah.
stuff that would, after running auctions for years and years, like stuff that would be the highlight of an auction almost anywhere else. Now we're like, oh, gosh, well, we're gonna have to we've got so many, we're gonna have to put some of these on Friday. So
Yeah.
it's neat to see that, and it's neat to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Make sure you check it
Very
out.
cool.
Put April, what is it, 12th through the 15th, tax time. You want to be in Reno. You make sure you get your flights early, make sure you get everything else taken care of. You do not want to miss this one.
Yeah.
We're only ever going to have one 61st anniversary, and this is it.
Yeah. Speaking of convention, we will have the national world, whatever the title is going to be, field judging championship at our convention, which the inaugural, regional event took place this weekend as well.
Yeah.
How can you, Jason, how can you do an event like this in one day? And in that one day, you've got new world records. You've got the unveiling of a new motorcycle. You've got a measuring workshop where 28 new measures are made. You've got an inaugural field judging championship. You've got wishes for warriors. The day was packed full.
It was packed.
And this is certainly, the field judging championship is certainly not anything lesser, because we're certainly excited about it.
Oh yeah, there's just it's a highlight reel. It's like the top 10 on ESPN. Here, the field judging championships, I'm gonna throw a shout out to Dallas Smith. He came up with this. We were putting Ogden together, and he says, hey, we need to do this. And we're like, I can't believe nobody's ever done this, because people do. People are always like, oh, well, I can get within 2 inches on a 185-inch mule deer. And you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Well, after seeing some of the scores, I think some of these guys can. And it's we had Rent Outdoor Gear come in with some high-end optics. Koa was there. And then you literally got 1 minute. We had 5 trophies, and you got 1 minute per trophy to look through the optics to determine the gross score, the net score, and the outside spread. And I was pretty close on a few of them, and I didn't make the top 3 on one of the 5. So it's those guys were, it was impressive. I was like, wow.
I was 100% spot on every single one of them. Didn't miss at all.
Yeah.
I just put, I would shoot.
Yeah. Yes.
Then they can't tell me I'm wrong,
Yeah. It's a shooter.
Yeah. It's got horns. I'm shooting.
Yeah, no, that was neat, and this is something we're looking to expand. We're gonna bring it to some more regional events, and then we're looking to have literally the world championships at convention. And
Yeah,
so,
that'd be exciting.
yeah,
Some of those guys, like I really think looking in the future, I really think like it's going to be like that, like battle of the ages, like showdown between like Frank Noska and Alan Bolin, you know, like
yeah,
those types of guys you're literally going to have facing off to see who's the better field judger. And you hear
yeah,
those guys talk. And, you know, Alan, when he was after that world record blacktail, he was talking and he's like, I would look and be like, it's only 107. I need 109. And I'm like, what? Like,
yeah,
how does that go on in your mind when you're hunting?
yeah,
And you've got that just that next level of guys. And when they announce the winners, they're like, oh, he was off by 4/8 of an inch. And you're like, what? Like,
yeah,
how? I was 43 inches off, you know?
yeah,
But it's just that next level, dude. And I would just shout out, you know, call out to anybody who thinks you're good at field judging. Now's your time to prove yourself. We are creating the championship to prove it.
yeah. Well, and what better? Nobody has more North American big game records than Pope and Young.
Yeah.
So we're kind of the obvious choice there. So
Yeah, absolutely. And for those guys who sit back and say, man, I live in my little farm in Georgia and I can judge whitetails till I'm blue in the face, but nothing else, you know, and Dallas said it openly, you know, if we come back east or to the Midwest or something, you know, we'll keep it whitetails. And if we go, you know, maybe somewhere else, there's really is there any other animal that's so incredibly prominent, like in one area?
you know, in the West, mule deer and elk get a lot of press, but
Yeah.
nothing as far as North American big game is
Yeah.
going to have the presence of whitetails.
Yeah, and so don't worry about that. I mean, I'm waiting for it to come somewhere down here, so I only have to judge whitetails. If I would have entered
Yeah,
that on Saturday, I could have looked at an antelope and just been like, "Yep," you know,
right.
there it is. That's an
And
antelope.
and
Um,
that whitetail they had, that was the one I was the farthest off on. I think I had I was within an inch or so on the gross, but I was way off on the net because it had some deductions and it had apparently had an abnormal point on the one side, and I had no idea. I'm just like, wow,
yeah,
that was
I
way
was pretty
on.
stinking close on that one actually. And all the other guys were like, "No, dude, no, man, no," and I say pretty close. I was inside 10 inches.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, that was the only one I could even begin to guess on. But no, I'm really excited about that, man. And you know, we were talking about how archery is such a unique sport because it's one of those things where, you know, you're not going to play baseball your whole life. You're not going to play basketball your whole life. You're not going to golf is about the only other thing that people play into their 90s. And you know, you've got guys like Harv Ebers who still bow hunts in his mid 80s, and
yeah,
it's such a sport that can last a lifetime. And this is a small piece of that sport, and getting better at it and learning how to do it. And you know, it's just a small piece of that sport, and I'm excited for guys to not only be able to show off and show how good they are at it, and because it's something to take pride in, but
yeah,
also give guys the opportunity to come in and learn from dudes like Alan Bolin or Frank Noska or who else placed, Jack Culpepper placed, I think. You know, those guys who are phenomenal at it, give us a chance to learn from them, you know?
yeah. No, it was definitely something that was really interesting, and uh, I loved the idea from the time I heard it. I just didn't know how to pull it off. And man, Dallas stepped up. I mean, not only pulled it off and got some trophies there that hadn't been measured, so there was no way for people to know. But I mean, this guy built stands that fit on rotating platforms so that these animals were literally spinning around as you looked at them. And it was like, that was some next level stuff. It was pretty
Yeah,
neat. So
it's very cool.
yeah.
No, I'm
Well,
excited about it. Shout out to Rent Guns and Gear, who's the title sponsor of the Field Judging Championship. Those guys showed up and set up some of most phenomenal optics platforms you could ever dream of looking through to judge these animals. That's another thing. It gives guys an opportunity to look through really good glass.
Yeah, it does. I noticed Koa had a pretty good presence there.
Yeah.
So
no, that was exciting too. Not only for the field judging championship, but, we work closely with Koa and I've had I've had a relationship with those guys for the better part of 5 years now. And I've loved their glass for so long, but down here in the Midwest, nobody ever talks about them. Nobody ever deals with them. Nobody ever, you never hear anything about them. And then you get there and there was such a rave about Koa. I mean, everything on the silent auction went really well. I tried to bid on the little 55 scope they had there and it just went outrageous. And we did one on live auction and it went really well. I think it brought like $1,200. And so there was a really cool excitement around Koa. And as a corporate partner of Koa, I was excited to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, one of those companies that help us make it successful. So what's next? What's up for next year, man? How big? What's your prediction right now? How many people? I know this year our goal was 100 people in the room, and I think we're somewhere 130, 140 range,
I believe.
Yeah. So
I think we'll be at 210 next year.
210. All right, that's a 50% increase year over year.
I think we'll be there.
I think, our goal, I think we need to set our goal at high, make our goal 200. And
Jay, I just think a lot of people really wanted to be a part of it. A lot of people, even a lot of companies I talked to at local in the area, really wanted to be a part of it. We have some corporate partners in the area that wanted to be a part of it and just didn't. But I think it's one of those deals where a lot of people were sitting back, kind of waiting to see what it would turn out to be.
Yeah.
And then Sunday morning they were looking and they saw all of the posts going up. I was blown away by the amount of just people commenting and posting saying awesome event, great event, glad I was there, dang, I missed it. And I think everybody's sitting around like, oh, it worked, like it was a good event, can't wait for next year. And so I think really next year there'll be a lot of people saying I won't miss it again. I missed it last year, but I won't again.
Yeah, and I think people.
So I think it'll be good.
Yeah, people this year were kind of waiting to see how it went. Sometimes you don't want to cannonball into the deep end until you test your toe in the water and see how warm it is. And I think next year we're going to see some cannonballs because people are like, oh, I should have done this, man. I'm going to have, I guarantee you I'll have 2 tables next year. That's what you're hearing. And so I'm excited to see it. We have one question.
What was so exciting for me was not only the people excited about the event, but I saw people fired up about Pope and Young. They came in, there's a bow hunting theme in town. There's a bow hunting group in town. And they really didn't know what we were about or why we did it or how we did it. And then they left fired up about Pope and Young.
Yes.
And they left just, excited about Pope and Young, excited about our vision, our mission, excited about what we're doing. And that for me, as a marketing director, that's my only job is to get people fired up about what we do. And so as for me, I was just sitting back and I'm like, we did it. Like, no matter, Jason's job is to make the money. My job is to get people fired up about Pope and Young. And I left and I was like, people are fired up about Pope and Young.
Absolutely.
And that was exciting.
And I have, our one question we ask every episode, it's hard to ask it, if there's just the two of us, but I'm going to go on record here. This won't be my official answer, but this will be my answer for this episode is when you find yourself heading out of the house, going to a measure course or a Pope and Young event, the one thing you don't want to go without, shoes.
I really thought, for those of you who, I really thought you were going to say shrimp, and that's just a funny. That's a
whole other episode.
Dinner one night.
You have to tell that story, man. That's.
I think we've got about 5 minutes, and we can share it. We go to this nice Italian restaurant. Not going to name any names. mainly because I don't remember. Couldn't tell you where it was, but it was downtown Ogden. It was a nice little Italian joint. We were fired up about it. It was very, very good. Jason orders, what's it called?
Carbonara shrimp.
Shrimp.
Carbonara.
What was it?
Carbonara
shrimp.
Yeah.
Carbonara.
Carbonara.
And so does Shelly, who's another lady in our office. Shout out to you, Shelly. We were told that she listens to every episode too.
Rock star.
We were told that she listens to every
rock
episode.
Star.
So now I got to quit talking bad about her.
Okay.
So they get the same thing. One of them comes out first, and the lady goes to hand it to Jason, and he says, "No, she got it down there. You can give it to her first."
It's in a bowl.
So she takes
like
it around,
and borderline
a massive
bucket,
like the size of a stinking football helmet bowl. I mean, it was massive.
Things like
so she
6
takes
inches
it around,
tall.
She gives it to Shelly. And we all get our food, and Jason's left without food. He's left last. And they bring out a little dinky plate, and they said, who else had the shrimp carbonaro? And Jason said, that's me. And so they slide it in front of Jason, and it was a little bitty dinky bowl. He looks down and looks at this little saucer, and he looks over at her massive gallon
bucket.
Bowl.
The bucket.
He looks back down at his, looks over at her. He starts looking around in his pasta plate, and he finds 2 shrimp. 2. Like I was sitting across from him. I watched him. 2 shrimp.
2 shrimp.
Not exaggerating.
No, legit. Only
I think
2
Shelly
shrimp.
had like. I think Shelly had like 57.
It was I think the official count was 13. And so I'm just like, at first I thought they were just messing with, because we have fun, and the waitress, we're kind of joking with her a little bit about salad dressings, and so at first I literally thought it was a joke. I'm like, okay, they're gonna bring the rest of it out, and then all of a sudden nothing ever came out, and I was like, wow. So that was something else. It's bad when you order a shellfish dish and the person on staff who's allergic to shellfish, there were so few shrimp in that thing, she probably could have eaten it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was
anyway,
it was a good time though, for sure.
It was tasty, but a couple more shrimp would have been nice. Anyway, it was just the way it went down was just hilarious. So
now Jason packs shrimp in his carry-on with him wherever he goes.
Oh yeah. Well, folks, we appreciate you listening. Hopefully you had a chance to get to Ogden and attend this event. If so, what it was like. It was fantastic. If not, we're going to do it again next year. And in the meantime, please make your plans to get to Reno for convention. It is going to be fantastic. I guarantee it. So
one more plug, Jay.
Yo.
We talked about the guy with the shoes. We absolutely love hearing those stories, or absolutely love hearing people. I also, I don't know if I told you, Jason, but at the measuring contest, or at the measuring class, I was going around getting some footage, and one of the guys in the measuring course, 2 of the guys there were like, "Hey, you're Dylan." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they said, "We listen to every episode of your podcast." And I'm like, "Hey, you and 7 other people here." No, we absolutely love that.
We do.
So if you enjoy the podcast, shoot us a message. You on Instagram, Facebook, email us, whatever. We love hearing that. And we might even tell one of your stories. So yeah, we love that.
Hey,
so
maybe,
make sure and
maybe
let us know if you enjoy it.
If we get enough feedback, maybe we put everybody that provides feedback in a bucket, draw one out, and have them on the show.
I love that.
So,
well, next year at convention, we need to auction off a guest appearance on the show.
There you go. We could raise like dozens of dollars that way.
I promise you that I will bid it up just to get it higher.
I know.
And then I'm going to be stuck with it.
Hey, you know what? We'll throw a challenge out to Dave. We'll say, hey, last time you beat Dylan on the auction, you better follow that up. So
yeah, you got to beat him again. And then I'll just bid him way up. And he's like, why did I just spend $24 to be on the Pope and Young podcast?
Right. So anyway, no, give us some feedback. Tell us what you like. If you don't like us talking about shoes, we'd probably even listen to that. And if you have guest recommendations, we've got a list, and we've got some really good folks coming up. This is just, we were so excited about this event that we purposefully wanted to do this fresh on our minds so that we could get it out and let everybody know about it. It's that exciting. So
yeah.
Anyway, appreciate you sticking in with
coming
us.
up we will have John Bear,
the auctioneer.
That'll be exciting.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, good. There's not many people in the world that absolutely just are the best at what they do. 100%. And John Bear is the best in hunt auctions. I mean,
yeah,
no doubt. There's nobody else. And so
and we're lucky to have him. So, well, thanks everybody for listening. So. We couldn't do what we do without you tuning in. We really appreciate you. And thank you so much. So have a great week. Talk to you next week.